Hey everybody, and welcome to the Crystal Healer Summit. I am so excited to have the one and only Hibiscus Moon joining me for this summit to share an interview, and I'll give us a little bit of information. Hibiscus Moon, why don't you tell us here who are watching all about yourself for those who don't know who you are and what you do.
Well, first of all, I just want to tell you thank you. I am honored to be here and joining you here today, Joey. So I am a self-described crystal geek. I've been into crystals my whole life, but I've also been into science my whole life. And I'm actually a former science teacher and department chair, but also doing crystal energy work on the side. And then I transitioned to educating and certifying people into crystal healing full time. It's been 10 years now. So
your academy online was one of the first, and it's become the gold standard. And I just have so many questions for you, and people who are getting into crystal healing also have sent in these questions. So the first question would be, what are the 3 attributes as a crystal healer that you look for when you are teaching, that you know that a healer will be successful taking your course or program?
Right. So, well, we have lots of graduates who have been very successful. And the things that I see in common with the most successful ones are basically overall is a willingness, and a willingness to do 3 things. To listen and trust their own intuition is number 1.
100%.
I mean, we have all these crystal books out there, and everybody wants to lean on, and there's all this contradictory information, and people's like, well, which book is the book? Your intuition is the number 1 most successful way to go, and being open to that and being able to trust that and be confident in that, the willingness to do that, to listen to it, to trust it, is the first thing that I know is going to make a successful crystal healer practitioner. The second thing is being willing to listen. If they're going to be working one-on-one with clients, or even one-to-many, being willing to listen to their client and what their needs are, rather than pushing their own healing agenda. I find that to be sometimes an issue with some people. They've learned these specific modalities. They think sometimes that they know best for their client. Do you know what I'm talking about? I think you do.
It's very kind of thing is, it's like you have to listen and really resonate with that. And sometimes it's like you can't just always go to like Reiki or your like number 3 2 crystals, which we'll get to. But I find it so important to attune yourself and be present to the moment and the energy of the client you're working with. So it's so wonderful to hear you say that.
Yeah, because I think we've all been there where someone has their own agenda and they're not really listening. They're just bent on pushing that agenda on you. So effective, good communication. And that involves not just listening, but speaking, right, as well. So we're talking about good, healthy, balanced throat chakra.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Stuff here. Yeah. And then the next thing I'd say would be to be willing to and open to changing what works. Thinking critically, I think, is the real backbone in that, and something that I learned when I became a national board certified science teacher.
Amazing.
Is to the importance of thinking critically and researching and being willing to experiment, and don't get married to one particular thing because that's what you learned and you got certified in it, right?
Yeah.
Even if it's my course, I want to empower people to think for themselves rather than to have others do the thinking for them. Again, falling back on what a book says, Be open, be courageous, confident, and be willing to change your beliefs, because when we have a belief, we're buying into something, and new information comes to light all the time. To me, I'm always updating and changing our course content and the curriculum, because new intel comes to light all the time, new downloads. So don't be afraid to let go of what was true for you yesterday may not be true today or tomorrow. So, otherwise, if you do that, it's become dogma, right?
Exactly. And so doing crystal healing is about breaking those dogmas and breaking those traditions. And what I've always loved about your program and perusing your website is that your courses are always evolving and expanding and there's levels and layers. And the thing is, you could get lost in your programs and your offerings because they're just always so wonderfully dense in a positive way to like spiral certain healers into be able to do specific modalities and create their own, which is so wonderful and so exciting. So this leads me to every crystal healer has 3 crystals that they're our go-to. And we know that sometimes we like to break that mold, but what are the 3 crystals that you love working with and why?
Okay, number 1 is, oh, and this is a big one. Hold on. I brought you my big baby clear quartz.
I got my clear quartz too. I love clear quartz.
Right? We have to because it's so versatile. It's so good for, and if you told me I could only have 1 crystal, it would definitely have to be a clear quartz because
it's a master crystal. It's so
exactly.
amazing. It's highly programmable. Love it.
Amplifier of energy. It's highly versatile. We can use it in so many different ways. So again, that if I could only have 1, I would definitely have a clear quartz of some kind.
So my question is you had a really big one. Does the size matter with people ask this all the time, and I'd love to have your input on that.
Why do people ask me that one question all the time? That's funny. But yes, I think it's because I am one of the few people who says that size does matter when I approach it from a physics standpoint, because there's an energetic torus around every crystal. And it can actually be measured. And so it stands to reason the larger the crystal. Now, there are other variables that can affect the energy torus, but that's going down a really deep rabbit hole. But just from a very simple point of view, the energy torus from a larger crystal is going to be much larger than from that of a smaller crystal. That's not 100% all the time across the board, but much of the time when I measure the energy torus of a larger crystal like this one, it's much larger. There are ways to amplify that. So, you know, there's things you can do to change that energy torus and make it larger, make it amplify and radiate.
Science of this is amazing. So your next crystals that are your love?
Okay, then I think I'll save this one for last. Hold on. Okay, this is a Smoky Quartz, and I don't know if you can see the rainbow in there. Are you able to see that?
Yes, I am. It's so beautiful. Oh my gosh, it's so gorgeous.
This is a gorgeous one. This specimen's from Brazil. You have to be careful with Smoky Quartz. A lot of them these days are artificially irradiated by gamma rays in a lab. So we don't want to really, I'm not going to tell anybody what to do. I don't like working with artificially irradiated Smoky Quartz. It's a different color. You can easily see the brown hue here, right? An artificially irradiated Smoky Quartz will actually be quite clear at the base, almost white, and then gray brown. If it even has a brown hue to it at all, it would be grayish blackish at the top.
Yes, I 100% agree. And I always spot that too, because I work with gemstones as well. And people abuse gemstones with irradiation and heat and laser and all that stuff like that. And it usually is very easy to tell. I can always see when Smoky Quartz has been irradiated. And I find that the frequency is different. It might be good for other people, but it's very much different. And I spot it a mile away. So I'm glad that you brought that up. And your last but not least crystal?
Oh, and the Smoky Quartz, the reason I like that is it's a good detoxer. So I just wanted to throw that in. And the last one is Ahoite. This is not an easy crystal to find by any means.
Oh my God. It's like, that's a $5,000 piece.
Well, it might be worth that now, but lucky for me, I got it a long time ago when people didn't realize how rare Ahoite was going to become. It's extremely rare, quite an exotic one, but a very powerful energy, a lot of healing energy. If you're looking for angelic connections, this is the crystal to work with. Finding one this large is going to be very difficult. So this is like my prized piece, but what's characteristic in Ahoite?
I only know one source who gets that from, and I'm going to guess that it's ethically sourced from possibly Paul. And that's all I'm saying, if you know who Paul is.
From Najaro?
He's one of my really good friends. He's amazing. He's going to be doing this crystal summit as well. So he's going to be in one of the videos, possibly the ones before you.
Oh, exciting. I'll have to watch that. Yeah, I met up with him in Tucson 2 years in a row now. Well, actually, you can't source Ahawite directly from the mine anymore. The Messina
Correct.
mine in South Africa is closed.
Mhm.
So it pretty much just goes from dealer to dealer now, and the
Is it?
price goes up each time, each time.
But it is so powerful. And what is its main? What do you like using it for most?
Connecting to higher self and that love frequency, and that angelic connection.
Very powerful. It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
I love that you have something from Paul. I love Paul. He's one of my
Yeah,
favorites. Okay,
he's
so
great.
next we've got you come from a background in teaching. Do you think crystal healing and holistics will one day be taught in schools alongside the science part? And that's the first part of the question. And then the second part of the question is what crystals are helpful for teens looking for crystal healing? And
Oh, both really good questions. Oh, go ahead. You weren't
that's
quite
it.
done.
Go for it.
Okay. Okay. So I'm going to be kind of the pessimist on this as far as being taught in schools alongside science, because I was so immersed in that world. I taught in the second largest school district in the nation, in the United States.
Mhm.
And all the bureaucracy and the red tape, if they finally can figure out how to get around that, and the things are so slow moving in the school systems, the United States anyway. I don't know what it's like in Canada,
In Canada,
but
we've got meditation and they do yoga and there's mindfulness. And I've actually helped
thank you.
some preschool and grade 4 teachers put together crystal vibration classes. So they're open here. I was very interested in how it is in the States. So thanks for
It,
clarifying that.
they were quite close-minded. Having said that, I have not been in the system for 10 years. It might have changed completely, but I do still have friends, so I know how it works. They have their core competencies and all this kind of stuff, and it just makes me crazy. But I do think that now that everything is changing so quickly, right before our eyes, right, and so many more are being forced to homeschool if they weren't already doing so before.
Yeah,
Well, now that families are in total control over what their children are learning, I do think this is a huge positive, and parents will take this on, take it into their own hands, and carry that torch for us.
that's
So I
so
think that we're
powerful.
going to be headed in the right direction in that department for
And
sure.
what crystals would you say like are helpful for teens, like looking for getting into crystal healing, or crystals that are good for teens in general?
Okay, so one thing that I think teens and children have a huge advantage over us as adults is that they're more fresh on this dimension, this plane, whatever you want to call it, this reality, right? They're still relatively green teenagers, not as jaded and dulled down as adults are. So they're much more in tune with energies. And without the filters we tend to put in place for ourselves, um, children and teens can better discern and
Mhm.
tap into their intuition and know what crystals they should be working with and tapping into or in training with them. They're so much better at that than we are, I've noticed. So I always feel like it's best to let them figure it out, let them
Love
choose
it.
intuitively. And a child will always, or a teenager, zero in and know exactly what crystals to work with. They're so perceptive with how to work with the crystals, even with knowing what to do with them. I've seen some amazing crystal grids built by teenagers, just and they know exactly what to do. They're not even asking questions. They're just going for it.
No, it's so amazing to see that high vibrational connection to their higher selves, and
Oh
they're
yeah.
beautifully building these beautiful crystal vortexes that I like to call them. So totally amazing. So my next question is, and I get this one a lot, as I'm sure you do too. What is your advice for people who are sensitive to energy, who still want to work with crystals for healing themselves and others? Is there a process or a step system that you should take if you're an ultra sensitive person or a self-proclaimed empath? Because I got a lot of people take my crystal foundation course, and we have to do a whole grounding exercise before I'm able to take them out into the store and intuitively pick crystals, because it's just too much for them. So how would you approach that?
I'm glad you do that, Joey, that you brought that up, because that's a really important step. And I actually wasn't going to mention that. So I'm happy you brought that up, because grounding, I feel, is especially important for most people, but especially empaths and people that are extra sensitive. Then it's imperative to do the grounding step, sometimes before and then again after, you know, depending on how sensitive you are. But I don't feel that there's any right or wrong way to approach it, other than to say, take your time. There's no need to hoard a whole bunch of crystals and books because we know a lot of people do that, right? If you're not going to first take the time to get to know each of your crystals well, right? I know it's really tempting, no denying that there. I've dipped into that realm myself. There's just so many beautiful crystals and gemstones out there. It's really hard to hold yourself back sometimes. But here's a process that works for me and my students. And it's essentially 4 steps. So the first one is create a focused block of sacred time for yourself where you can do this work.
So important. People overextend themselves so much.
Yeah. And if you don't take the time to carve that time out, actually put it into your calendar so it actually happens, then we're not going to do it. So create that focused block of sacred time. Then you want to make sure you're going to eliminate overwhelm with the crystals, which is very easy to do. You can get paralyzed by all the crystals you see in the shops, or you see even in these live stream shows that people do, and I gotta have it. Crystals that you have amassed yourself in your collection, but again, you haven't taken the time to really create that bond with each of them. And you have no idea where to begin or which crystal to go to, or you hop around from crystal to crystal before you've really gotten to know this other crystal over here, right? So
I can relate to that.
I know, we've all done it. But if you focus on getting quiet and still, you're going to notice that you're naturally attracted to one particular crystal. Usually one, sometimes 2, maybe 3, for whatever reason. Maybe because it's just aesthetically pleasing to you right now, or you have a deep inner knowing that your intuition is kind of niggling that you're attracted to this one crystal for a very good reason. Don't ignore that. Don't worry about what the books are saying. Go with your intuition and don't let that overwhelm creep in. Maybe it means you have to take your crystal collection and put it in another room and just focus on these 3 over here for a while. Okay, then the third step is to publicly commit. And this totally works like a charm for keeping me motivated and accountable and to stay on track. So maybe it means, and a lot of us are in, you know, doing all kinds of online connections to keep our connection, some kind of social connection. And maybe you're in a Facebook group of some sort.
Yeah.
You can tell people in that group, you're looking for their help on this. You're looking for accountability. Sorry, I'm getting tongue twisted. Tell them to ask you questions, ask you about your goal to work with maybe one specific crystal for this week and to learn more about that crystal. When they see you online, they can say, hey, how are you doing? I know you were working with that Smoky Quartz this week. You know, how did it go? What did you learn? So having somebody keep you accountable is really helpful in that endeavor. And then the last step to overcome the fear of failing at crystal healing.
100%.
One thing I noticed, confidence gets in the way. Lack of confidence gets in the way of a lot of people.
What's really interesting that I notice is a lot of the times is people, when they're on their healing journey, they confuse confidence and solar plexus power as ego. And you try to tell them, no, it's like, step into that power, step into that light. And then once they do, and they realize that it's for the greater good and it helps to bring them into alignment, and it's not a negative ego, it's a positive ego, they start like blossoming. It's so beautiful. So I'm glad that you brought that up.
Yeah, it's really good because it helps you to have that faith in that this is going to work. Don't doubt yourself. Some people will ask, well, who am I to think I can do this? I'm going to fail. Crystal healing, it's not going to work. Wrong, because you cannot fail. And if you have that faith and that confidence, you're going to be fine. First of all, bear in mind that when working with crystals, the healing that's taking place is not you doing the healing. It's a two-way street. It goes both ways. You're simply acting as a conduit, or some say the hollow bone for this work to take place. You're a facilitator. So that
100%.
that takes a lot of the pressure off of people, right? And it usually totally dissipates that fear, that doubt, the lack of confidence that so many of us have around doing this sort of work. It like lifts that off our shoulders, and then you can go forward with it.
Amazing. Thank you so much for all that deep insight. So, crystal healing is becoming more widely accepted as a practice and practice all over the world. There are so many sources, books, courses, programs available now more than ever. More crystal healers are awakening and intuitively, just like those like you see all over like social media and stuff like that. And they're going out into the world. So what is one big thing you'd like to share with people thinking to join this profession?
Okay, well, some people want to take this and do this with clients and for other people. Some are just wanting to learn the information for themselves and kind of just do like a self-study thing for their own personal knowledge. But now we see the old systems are falling away, right?
Mm-hmm.
And healers and light workers, crystal energy workers from all walks, all sorts of energy work are coming into their power, because
Amazing.
people are now coming to us for, what do I do? You know, almost like this was a last resort, but they know it's because this is working for us. They see it working for us.
Oh yeah.
So people are coming to our community looking for strength and healing and support, comfort, peace, and they're getting it. They see that it works. So we're coming into our own now. And I just spoke to my student community about this on Monday, how many people are having to shift or pivot their careers now. And many have decided that this calling to working with energy and crystals, this is where their soul is being called to now, to step into this fully. And the universe is opening the doors to make that happen for them. So we can be here to offer up our support to others in need. So if this is something that you feel is resonating with you, it feels like it's in alignment with you right now, it's calling to you, then don't ignore that. Again, I feel like this is a theme here in this interview, but
Amazing.
that's your intuition. That's the universe knocking at your door right now. We're needed now more than ever.
Oh, that's amazing. And this kind of leads me to my last question. What program or course do you have offering right now that you'd like to share with the people who are taking the Crystal Healer Summit?
Well, I would really just like to offer them a free Create Your Own Sacred Space with Crystals kit that I have, so that you can create your own space of serenity, escape whatever is going on outside in the world around you, and
Amazing.
connect with the crystals. So in that kit, they get, and this is all free.
I
They
love
get,
it. So generous of you. Thank you so much.
Oh, absolutely. Well, they subscribe to my newsletter to get this, so I will put that out there. But you won't regret subscribing to my newsletter, because I give
love
all
your
kinds
newsletter. I cannot go on about how informative and how generous you are with so many giveaways and so many different offerings. And I love how consistent your social media and your lives and your community outreach is. It's so wonderful. So I hope everybody who's tuning into this signs up for this, and the link will be in the email for you to sign up. So thank you so much, Hibiscus Moon, for joining me for this interview. It's been amazing, and I feel like I learned a whole bunch of stuff, and I just feel so connected and excited. And thank you for being a part of this, and I'm looking forward to doing more collaborations with you in the future. Thank you so much, and all the best to everyone tuning in.